The great hall was silent. Thousands of alien faces looked down from their seats, arranged in circles that rose high toward the ceiling. The ceiling itself was made of glass, and through it the stars of 100 distant systems burned like cold eyes watching everything below. In the center of the hall stood a small girl. She was 12 years old. Her name was Yuna, and she was human. Her hands were bound in front of her with glowing chains that hummed with energy. The chains were meant for dangerous criminals, for killers and terrorists. But they had put them on a child who had done nothing more than touch something she should not have touched. Yuna did not cry. She stood straight and looked ahead, even though her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Her father had taught her to be brave. Her father had taught her that fear was not weakness. Letting fear control you was. Her father stood 20 feet away, held back by 4 armored guards. Admiral Wujin was his name, and he was one of the most important humans in the galaxy. He had spent 15 years building peace between Earth and the alien races. He had shaken hands with creatures that had no hands. He had learned 12 languages that human mouths were never meant to speak. He had done everything right, and none of it mattered now. The human child is guilty, said the voice from above. The voice belonged to High Arbiter Morvax. He was tall, perhaps 9 feet, with a body covered in hard black plates like armor. His face had no nose, no lips, just 2 large eyes that reflected light like mirrors, and a mouth that opened sideways when he spoke. He had hated humans from the day they first arrived in council space. He thought they were loud, messy, emotional creatures who bred too fast and asked too many questions. Now he had one of their children in chains, and he was enjoying every moment. She entered the sacred archive of the Varus people, Morvax continued. She touched the memory crystal of our ancestors with her bare hands. This is a crime of the highest order. The punishment is death. Admiral Wujin pulled against the guards holding him. She is a child. She did not know. She saw something beautiful, and she touched it because she is curious, because that is what children do. You cannot kill her for this. Morvax turned his mirror eyes toward the Admiral. Your laws do not matter here, human. You joined our council? You agreed to follow our rules. Did you think those rules would bend for you? Did you think your species was special? I am begging you, Wujin said. His voice broke. This man who had faced down pirates and negotiated with warlords, this man who had never shown weakness to anyone, was begging. Take me instead. Take my life. Take anything. Just let my daughter go. No, Morvax said simply. The law is the law. And besides, this will be educational. Your people need to learn their place in this galaxy. You are new here. You are small. You are nothing. And after today, you will remember that. He raised one long arm and pointed at the ceiling. The glass changed, becoming a screen that showed symbols and numbers that Yuna did not understand. The execution will be broadcast to all 4,000 member worlds of the Galactic Council. Every species will watch. Every planet will see. Let it be known that the Council's justice applies to everyone, even the children of Earth. Yuna felt something cold move through her body. She had known this might happen. From the moment the guards had taken her from her room 3 days ago, she had known. But hearing it said out loud, knowing that billions of beings across the galaxy would watch her die, that was different. That made it real. She looked at her father. He was still fighting against the guards, still trying to reach her. There were tears on his face. She had never seen her father cry before. Not once in her entire life. She wanted to tell him it was okay. She wanted to tell him that she was not afraid. But she was afraid. She was so afraid that her whole body was shaking. She was 12 years old, and she did not want to die, but she would not let them see that. She would not give Morvax that satisfaction. Take her to the platform, Morvax ordered. Begin the ceremony. Guards moved toward Yuna. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms each. They grabbed her chains and pulled her forward toward a raised platform at the far end of the hall. On the platform sat a chair made of black stone. Above the chair hung a blade, curved and gleaming, suspended by a mechanism that Yuna did not want to understand as she walked. She turned her head to look at her father one last time. She tried to smile. She wanted him to remember her smiling. "Appa," she said softly. "Guan, Chana." "Dad, it is okay." Admiral Wu Jin collapsed to his knees. The guards let him fall. What did it matter now? His daughter was walking to her death, and there was nothing he could do. Nothing anyone could do. The broadcast began. Across the galaxy, on 4,000 worlds, screens lit up with the image of a small human girl being led to an execution platform. The timestamp appeared in the corner of every screen, counting down 20-7 minutes until the ceremony would be complete. 27 minutes until Yuna would die on Earth. In a city called Seoul, an old woman stopped in the middle of a busy street and looked up at a public screen. She saw the girl's face. She saw the chains. She understood. On a space station orbiting Mars, workers put down their tools and gathered around monitors. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. On 100 ships, scattered across human space, crews stopped their work and watched. Soldiers watched. Scientists watched. Families watched. Children watched. Humanity watched. And in that silence, something began to change. Something old and deep and dangerous woke up inside 1 billion human hearts. Something that had been sleeping since the days when humans were just another animal fighting to survive on a small blue planet. The aliens thought they knew humans. They thought humans were soft, emotional, weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Fleet Admiral Taiyan stood in the command center of United Terran Command. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, he was 63 years old. He had served in the military for 40 years. He had seen battles. He had lost friends. He had made decisions that cost lives and saved lives, but he had never seen anything like what was on the screen in front of him. The image showed a little girl sitting in a black stone chair. Her hands were still chained. Her face was calm, but Taeyeon could see the way her shoulders trembled. She was trying so hard to be brave. She was trying so hard not to cry. Around him, the command center was full of officers. Generals, admirals, strategists, communications experts. The most powerful military minds on Earth were all in this room, and they were all watching the same screen, and they were all silent. "Sir," said a young officer, her voice barely a whisper. "What do we do?" Taeyeon did not answer. He watched the screen. He watched as an alien priest began speaking words in a language he did not understand. He watched as the curved blade above Yuna's head began to glow with energy. He watched as Admiral Wu Jin, held back by guards, screamed his daughter's name. 19 minutes left on the countdown. Taeyeon had spent his entire career following rules. He believed in order. He believed in diplomacy. He believed that violence was the last option, never the first. He had always said that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, but its ability to make friends, to build bridges, to find common ground with even the strangest of beings. He had believed that right up until this moment now. Watching a 12-year-old girl wait for death while billions of aliens watched like it was entertainment. Something inside him changed. Something broke. Something new took its place. He turned away from the screen and looked at his officers. They looked back at him with eyes full of anger and pain and helplessness. They were waiting for him to do something. They were waiting for him to tell them that everything would be okay, that diplomacy would work, that someone would save Yuna instead. He said 2 words. Condition absolute. The room went completely still. Condition absolute was not a battle plan. It was not a strategy. It was a promise. A promise that had been written into human military law 200 years ago. During the darkest days of the last war on Earth, it meant total war. It meant that every rule was suspended, every limit removed, every resource committed. It meant that humanity would fight until either they won or they were all dead. It had never been used. Not once in 200 years. "Sir," said General Park, the oldest officer in the room, "are you certain? This will mean war with the entire council. 4,000 species. Millions of ships. We cannot win that war," Taeyeon said. "I do not care." He walked to the main communications console and pressed a button. His voice would now reach every human ship, every human station, every human outpost in the galaxy. This is Fleet Admiral Tyun of the United Terran Navy. All ships. All hands. Condition absolute is now in effect. I repeat, condition absolute. You know what this means? You know what to do? Our enemies believe we are weak. They believe we are few. They believe we are afraid. They are about to learn the truth. Move now, save our daughter. That is all. He released the button. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every screen in the command center lit up with movement. Ships that had been docked began launching. Ships that had been drifting began accelerating. Ships that had been hiding showed themselves for the first time. 3 systems away from Varus Prime. Commander Hannah stood on the bridge of the ESS Resolve and listened to the Admiral's message. Her ship was a heavy cruiser, one of the fastest and most powerful vessels in the human fleet. She had been on a routine patrol, checking trade routes, protecting merchants. Normal, boring work? Not anymore. Navigation, she said, her voice cold and steady. Plot a course to Varus Prime. Maximum speed. Ma'am, at maximum speed we will arrive in 4 hours. The execution will be over by then. Commander Hannah smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Use the blink drive. Her bridge crew turned to stare at her. The blink drive was experimental. It was secret. Only 12 ships in the entire fleet had them, and they were never supposed to use them except in the most extreme circumstances. The drives allowed a ship to travel almost instantly across huge distances, but they were dangerous. They could fail. They could kill everyone aboard, ma'am, said Lieutenant Jiwoo, the tactical officer. The blink drive has never been tested at this range. If we use it, we might not survive. I know, Hannah said. Do it anyway. Jiwoo looked at her commander for a long moment. Then she nodded. Yes, ma'am. All across human space, similar scenes were happening. On merchant ships, captains locked their cargo holds and armed their hidden weapons. On research stations, scientists abandoned their experiments and prepared their ships for launch. On colony worlds, civilians who had never held a gun in their lives walked into armories and took what they needed. They all knew what was happening. They had all seen the broadcast. They had all seen Yuna's face, and they were all moving now. Not because they were ordered to, not because they were soldiers, but because somewhere deep inside every human heart, there was a line that could not be crossed. A line that said, "You do not hurt our children. You do not touch our young. You do not threaten our families." The Galactic Council had crossed that line. They had thought humans were weak because humans smiled and laughed and cried and hugged each other. They had thought humans were soft because humans made art and music and poetry. They had thought humans were harmless because humans wanted peace. They were about to discover that the same species that created beautiful things was also the species that had invented nuclear weapons. The same species that wrote love songs was also the species that had fought 1,000 wars against itself. The same species that cried at sad movies was also the species that would burn the galaxy to ash to protect one single child. The countdown continued. 16 minutes remained. The sky above Varus Prime was still quiet. It would not stay that way for long. Captain Junho sat in the darkness of his ship and waited. The Silent Wrath was a stealth frigate. It was small, fast, and almost impossible to detect. For the past 6 months, Junho and his crew had been hiding in the Varus system, watching and listening. They were spies. They were ghosts. The Council did not know they existed. Junho had been eating his lunch when the broadcast began. He had watched the same images everyone else had watched. He had seen the little girl in chains. He had heard the alien judge pronounce the death sentence. Then he had received condition absolute. Now he sat in his captain's chair, his lunch forgotten, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around him, his crew worked in silence. They were checking weapons, preparing systems, running calculations. They knew what was coming. They knew what they had to do, Captain, said Ensign Nari, the youngest member of his crew. She was only 19 years old, barely older than Yuna herself. We are ready. Junho nodded. How long until the execution? 12 minutes. Such a small amount of time, such a huge distance to travel. The Resolve and the other ships were coming. Junho knew that. But would they arrive in time? Could they arrive in time? He looked at the planet below. Varus Prime was a beautiful world, covered in blue oceans and green forests. The capital city was a shining collection of towers and domes, built over thousands of years by a civilization that considered itself ancient and wise. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves. They had traveled between stars when humans were still afraid of the dark, and they were about to execute a child for touching a rock. Narration Ho said quietly, "Do you remember why you joined the Navy?" The young ensign looked at him, surprised by the question. "My grandmother told me stories about Earth," she said. "About the old days before we went to the stars. She said that back then humans only had each other. We could not count on anyone else to protect us. She said we should never forget that. She was wise. She was." Nari paused. "Captain, even if we fail today, even if we all die, I want you to know that I am glad I am here. I would rather die trying to save that girl than live knowing I did nothing." Junho looked at his crew. Every one of them was looking back at him. Every one of them had the same fire in their eyes. They were not afraid. They were ready. "We will not fail," he said, "and we will not die. Not today." 8 minutes remained. Far across the galaxy, 400 human warships activated their blink drives at the same moment. It was the largest coordinated jump in human history. Engineers had said it was impossible. Admirals had said it was suicide. But the crews of those ships did not care about impossible. They did not care about risk. They cared about one thing only: the girl on the screen. The drives hummed. Reality bent. Space itself twisted and folded like paper being crumpled by a giant hand, and then they were gone. In the Great Hall on Varus Prime, High Arbiter Morvax was enjoying himself. He stood on a raised platform beside the execution chair, speaking to the cameras, explaining the importance of law and order. His voice was smooth and satisfied. He had waited years for a moment like this. A moment to show the galaxy that humanity was nothing special. A moment to put these loud, messy creatures in their place. "The humans think they are special," he said to the cameras. "They think the rules do not apply to them. They are wrong. Today, everyone will see that they are wrong." He looked down at Yuna. She was still sitting in the black chair, her chains holding her in place. She had not spoken since they brought her here. She had not cried. She had not begged. That annoyed Morvax. He had wanted her to beg. "Do you have any last words, child?" he asked. Yuna looked up at him. Her eyes were dark and steady. "My people will come for me," she said. Morvax laughed. It was an ugly sound, like metal scraping against metal. "Your people. Your people are 3 systems away. Even their fastest ships would take 4 hours to reach us. You will be dead long before then. Your people cannot save you. No one can save you." "You do not know my people," Yuna said quietly. Morvax dismissed her words with a wave of his hand. He turned back to the cameras and raised his arms. "Let the execution proceed." The blade above Yuna's head began to descend. It moved slowly, deliberately, giving the cameras time to capture every moment. This was theater. This was performance. This was meant to be remembered. 3 minutes remained, in the command center beneath the Korean mountains. Fleet Admiral Taeyeon watched the blade drop. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. He had done everything he could. He had given the orders. He had sent the ships. But would it be enough? Would they arrive in time? "Come on," he whispered. "Come on." 2 minutes. The blade was halfway down now. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought of her father. She thought of her mother, who had died when she was young. She thought of Earth, the planet she had never seen but had always dreamed of visiting. She thought of blue skies and green grass and the smell of rain. She was not afraid anymore. She was just sad. Sad that she would never see those things. Sad that she would never grow up. Sad that her father would have to live without her 1 minute. The blade was inches from her neck now, and then the sky above Varus Prime split open. It was not like anything the console had ever seen. Reality itself seemed to tear apart, like fabric being ripped by invisible hands. Through the tears came ships, human ships, hundreds of them, battleships and cruisers and destroyers and frigates, peering out of nothing, filling the sky with steel and fire. The blade stopped. The entire hall went silent. Every alien in the room looked up at the ceiling, at the screens showing what was happening in orbit. Their eyes went wide with something they had not felt in a very long time. Fear, High Arbiter. Morvac stared at the screens. His mirror eyes reflected the image of 400 human warships arranging themselves in perfect formation above his world. "That is impossible," he whispered. "That is impossible." But it was not impossible. It was human. The Council's defense fleet was caught completely off guard. They had ships in orbit, yes, hundreds of them. But they were ceremonial vessels, built for parades and shows of power, not for actual combat. Their crews were unprepared. Their weapons were cold. Their shields were down. The human fleet was none of those things. Commander Hannah stood on the bridge of the Resolve, looking down at the planet below. Her ship had been the first to arrive, bursting through reality at the front of the formation. The blink drive had worked. Against all odds, against every prediction, it had worked. "Open a channel," she said. "All frequencies. I want every being on that planet to hear this." "Channel open, ma'am." Nat took a breath. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and cold and absolutely terrifying. "This is Commander Hannah of the United Terran Navy. You have taken a child of Earth. You will return her. You have 60 seconds to comply. If you do not, we will come down there and take her ourselves, and you will not enjoy that experience." In the Great Hall, High Arbiter Morvax heard the message through the speakers. His hands were shaking. His mirror eyes darted from screen to screen, watching the human ships move into attack positions. This was not supposed to happen. This was not possible. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans did not have this kind of technology. "How?" he demanded, turning to his advisors. "How did they get here so fast?" No one answered. No one knew. 47 seconds remained on Hannah's countdown. Morvax made a decision. It was the wrong decision, but he was too proud and too angry to see that. He had spent too many years hating humans, dismissing humans, treating humans like insects. He could not accept that insects had just outsmarted him. "Continue the execution," he ordered. "They will not dare attack. They are bluffing." The guards hesitated. They looked at the screens, at the warships filling the sky. They were not as confident as their leader. "I said continue," Morvax screamed. The guard operating the blade controls reached for the switch. The blade began to move again, continuing its slow descent toward Yuna's neck. 30 seconds, in orbit. Hannah watched through her sensors as the blade resumed moving. She felt something cold settle into her chest. It was not anger. It was something beyond anger. Something that had no name. "Weapons officer," she said. "Target the execution platform. Guards only. Precision strike." "Ma'am, at this range with the interference from the atmosphere, there is a chance we could hit the girl." "What chance?" 3%. Anna closed her eyes for 1 second. 3%. 3 chances in 100 that she would kill the girl she was trying to save. Those were not good odds. Those were terrible odds. But the blade was falling, and there was no more time. "Take the shot." Resolve fired. A beam of concentrated energy, thinner than a human hair, screamed down through the atmosphere at the speed of light. It hit the execution platform with perfect accuracy, vaporizing every guard within 20 feet of Yuna without leaving a single mark on the girl herself. The blade stopped. The mechanism holding it had been destroyed. Yuna opened her eyes. She was still alive. "Marines away," Hannah ordered. "Get our girl." Sergeant Hyunwoo was already falling. His drop pod screamed through the atmosphere, wrapped in fire and smoke. Around him, 11 other pods fell in formation. Inside each pod was a Marine in full powered armor. Carrying enough weapons to fight a small war, the pods hit the ground around the execution platform. They did not slow down or land gently. They hit like bombs. crashing through the floor of the Great Hall and sending aliens running in every direction. Hyun-woo's pod opened. He stepped out, 3 meters tall in his armor, his weapons already raised. Through his helmet's display, he could see everything. The girl in the chair. The terrified aliens, the smashed guards, the High Arbiter standing frozen with shock. "Contact," he said into his radio. "Target acquired." Moving to secure, he walked toward Yuna. Aliens scattered out of his way. Some tried to raise weapons, but his team was faster. They did not kill anyone who was not a threat. They did not need to. Their presence alone was enough. Hyun-woo reached the chair. Yuna looked up at him, this giant in metal armor, and she smiled. "Hello, little one," he said, his voice gentle, despite the helmet. "I am here to take you home." He reached down and broke her chains with his armored hands. Then he lifted her into his arms, cradling her against his chest, like she was made of glass. "I knew you would come," Yuna whispered. "Of course we came," Hyun-woo said. "You are one of us." He turned to leave. As he did, he passed within 5 feet of High Arbiter Morvax. The alien leader was still standing in the same spot, still frozen, still unable to believe what was happening. Hyun-woo stopped. He looked at Morvax through his helmet's dark visor. "You should have listened," he said. "You should have shown mercy. Remember this day, Arbiter. Remember what happens when you threaten a human child." He walked away, carrying Yuna toward the extraction point above the planet. Captain Junho's silent wrath decloaked directly over the Great Hall. The ship had been there the whole time, invisible, waiting. Now everyone could see it. Junho's voice came through every speaker in the building, every screen on the planet, every broadcast across the galaxy. "This is Captain Junho of the ESS Silent Wrath. Let this serve as Earth's answer. You thought we were weak? You thought we were afraid? You thought you could take our children and we would do nothing? You were wrong." In the command center on Earth, Fleet Admiral Taiyun watched as Hyun-woo carried Yuna aboard a shuttle. He watched as the shuttle rose into the sky and docked with the Resolve. He watched as the sensors confirmed that the girl was safe, that she was aboard, that she was alive. He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "She is safe," someone said. "Yes," Taeyeon replied. "But we are not done." He turned to face his officers. His eyes were hard. "Show them what happens next." In the hours after the rescue, humanity showed the galaxy exactly what it was capable of. The 400 warships did not attack Varus Prime. They did not need to. Destroying the planet would have been easy, but that was not the point. The point was to teach a lesson. The point was to make sure that every species in the galaxy understood what had happened and why. Instead of destruction, humanity chose demonstration. In 12 hours, human ships disabled every military satellite orbiting Varus Prime. They did not destroy them. They simply turned them off, as easily as flipping a switch. Then they did the same to every defense platform, every weapons station, every orbital fortress in the system. The Council had spent 10,000 years building their defenses. Humanity took them apart in half a day without firing a single shot. When they were done, Commander Hannah sent one final message to the planet below. "We could have killed you. Remember that we chose not to," and the fleet jumped away, disappearing as quickly as it had arrived, across the galaxy. The reaction was immediate. 17 species withdrew from the Galactic Council within the first week. They had seen what humans could do. They had seen how fast humans could move, how powerful human weapons were, how completely human technology had surpassed everything the Council had developed over thousands of years. They wanted no part of any conflict with Earth. 30 more species followed in the second week, by the end of the month. The Galactic Council was in ruins. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years was breaking apart, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. High Arbiter Morvax was arrested by his own people. They dragged him from his chambers and put him in chains, the same kind of chains he had used on Yuna. The Varus government issued a formal apology to Earth. But everyone knew it was not because they were sorry. It was because they were afraid. Admiral Wujin and Yuna returned to Earth as heroes. Millions of people came out to welcome them home. The streets were filled with crowds, the sky was filled with fireworks, and everywhere Woojin looked, he saw signs with his daughter's face on them, but Woojin did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. He felt old. He had almost lost his daughter because of politics, because of pride, because of an alien judge who wanted to make an example of a child. "Pa," Yuna said, tugging on his sleeve as they walked through the crowds. "Why are they all looking at me?" Woojin knelt down so he could look into her eyes. "Because you were brave," he said. "Because you did not give up. Because you reminded everyone what it means to be human." "I was scared," Yuna admitted. "I was really scared." "I know, little one. Being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you keep going even when you are." He hugged her tight. "I am so proud of you." 3 months after the rescue, a new alliance began to form. It was not like the old council. It was not based on fear or dominance or ancient laws that punish children for being curious. It was based on something simpler: mutual respect. Humanity did not ask to lead this new alliance. They did not demand special treatment or special privileges, but species after species asked them to take charge anyway. Not because humans were the strongest or the most advanced, though they were now clearly both, but because humans had shown something that most species had forgotten was possible. They had shown that power could be used with restraint. They had shown that strength could be paired with mercy. They could have destroyed Varus Prime. They could have burned the entire council to ash. Instead, they had rescued one little girl and gone home. That, more than anything else, was why the galaxy now looked to humanity for leadership. 1 year after the rescue, a new ship was launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. It was the largest vessel ever built by human hands, a dreadnought so massive that it blocked out the sun as it passed overhead. Its hull was painted white, color of peace. Its name was the ESS Yuna. The naming ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Admiral Taeyun gave a speech about hope and unity in the future. Commander Hannah was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Terran First Fleet. Captain Junho and Sergeant Hyunwoo were both given medals and honors that they insisted they did not deserve, but the real moment, the moment everyone remembered, came at the end of the ceremony. Yuna herself, now 13 years old, walked onto the bridge of the ship that bore her name. She was wearing a junior officer's uniform, specially made for her size. She looked small, standing there among all those controls and screens and stations. Commander Hannah, who had come to see the launch, knelt down beside her. "How does it feel?" she asked. Yuna looked out the main viewport at the stars stretching endlessly in every direction. She thought about everything that had happened. The arrest, the chains, the execution platform, the blade falling toward her neck, and then the sky breaking open and her people pouring through like angels made of steel and fire. She thought about what she had learned in that terrible place. She had learned that the galaxy was full of beings who thought they were powerful because they had been around for a long time. She had learned that those beings were wrong. Power was not about age or size or how many ships you had. Power was about having something worth fighting for. "It feels like home," she said. Hannah smiled and stood up. She looked at the crew assembled on the bridge, at the 100 officers who would serve aboard this ship, who would carry Yuna's name to every corner of the galaxy. "Now then, let us go," she said. "The stars are waiting." The ESS Yuna's engines came to life. The great ship began to move, sliding away from Earth, away from everything familiar, toward the unknown darkness between the stars. Yuna watched through the viewport as her home planet grew smaller and smaller behind her. She was not afraid. She had learned something in that execution chamber, something that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. She was human, and humans never abandon their own. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. They would not forget it.